Jeff, why don't you go ahead and briefly share your background?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I'm what I would call a reformed engineer. I have an engineering degree. I haven't done a lot of quote unquote traditional engineering directly out of college. I was a recruiter. I left that and actually did do a little engineering, not detail, not design. I left that company and started a recruiting firm. And then through the course of the recruiting firm, I learned marketing and I kind of got the bug and the itch and transitioned from recruiting into digital marketing back in 2003. And that was right around the time when digital marketing was really beginning. And I did that for 14 years, eventually sold my digital agency, and then moved into the corporate world where I've held positions with SaaS companies, which also did PaaS and then also infrastructure as a service, a very large global law firm. And then finally, where I'm at now, which is a company in the hospitality industry. So through all that experience, I've really been, I would say, exposed to a lot, and I've seen digital marketing, marketing automation really develop from the beginning up to now over the years. So find it extremely interesting, really like what I do, and I'm excited to talk about it today.
Great. Speaking of digital, we often hear the term digital transformation.
Mhm.
It's almost a dated term, though. Do you think it still applies today in marketing?
So, I mean, digital transformation or the idea of using technology to change how a business operates. Um, my opinion is that that is always present. It's omnipresent at all times, no matter when. So if we go back to 2003, we had websites that were mostly HTML. They were just straight general information, and then we evolved from that. I mean, we could bring WordPress in, moving from HTML into WordPress. That's a digital transformation. Email at its inception was, peer-to-peer. It was one-to-one. And eventually autoresponders came on board, like Aweber and GetResponse. And over the years, there have been many big changes, marketing automation in particular. If you take Eloqua now versus an autoresponder would have been considered marketing automation in 2005. So a real dramatic shift. So digital transformation is always happening. I don't see it really ever going away per se. It's just how you're using the most current technology to improve how a business operates. So it's always occurring.
Great. Yeah, I can remember the good old days, if we want to call it that, when the company I was at, we transitioned from using Lyris,
Mm-hmm.
very old technology, to moving to Eloqua version 9, and it seemed like a light speed increase in productivity there. So Eloqua and the tools like it have been around for a while. Do you think their most significant impact is behind us, or are there still untapped opportunities for them to drive real change?
I think that's an interesting question. I really have thought a lot about that. And I think the opportunities are there. However, it's going to require the use of AI. So I think the biggest challenge is right now, in particular, I would say probably any company, Oracle included. I see them trying to fit AI into an old paradigm. So they're using AI to augment or supplement work. Um, Most businesses are doing that right now. I mean, Eloqua was doing that. They've just incorporated some AI features into the platform. You can use AI for subject lines, content, send time optimization. You can determine if your list is burned out. So there's some AI features, but it's within the context of the whole paradigm. Where I see really the big shift occurring is using AI agentically. So if we take Eloqua right now, you can do a lot of great business process. You can run, email campaigns. You can incorporate SMS. You can put a lot of conditional logic in, but it's really one piece of the puzzle. I think the other piece is kind of on traffic or getting at bats. And where I see the opportunity for Eloqua and other companies in particular is creating agentic systems. So moving it just simply from the business process and the process of reaching out and doing demand generation to now what we're going to do is we're also going to deploy campaigns, say, in YouTube. So YouTube Shorts, we could do Instagram, we could do TikTok. And the idea is actually just having agents, say, in Eloqua, where you put in a simple request and it does that. So, I'd like to do a campaign on teaching people how to use Eloqua to use the new AI features. And you'll type it into, say, something like Telegram, and then that prompt will go to an agent, and then that agent might oversee 15 other agents that do unique things. They talk amongst each other, and eventually they come back, they generate the campaign, the canvas is generated, and it's all automatically, it all happens in half an hour, and there's no more interaction. So I think the first company that actually takes all of the marketing functions and unifies them in a scalable manner with AI is really going to be where the opportunity is. There's some evidence of that right now, like go high level. Granted, that's more towards sales professionals, local types of businesses, but they're starting to do that, and they're already $1 billion company. They haven't existed that long. So the opportunities there, but you need to shift to the new paradigm. I think just fitting the AI into the context of the current isn't going to be enough.
That's a very interesting perspective, seeing Eloqua, if you will, as the orchestration, but tapping into that with AI to repurpose the content so you get more channels than just those that are natively coming out of Eloqua.
Yes.
New video formats, new chat formats, interactive formats as well.
Yeah, and it can go a step further. Like one of the agents could be a copywriting agent, and you would train it. You take the top copywriters, you might go out and buy all of their courses, and then you're going to load that information into it. You're going to tell it it's a world-class copywriter. It has all of the knowledge that all the top copywriters, like a Frank Kern or a Dan Kennedy, it has all of that in one place, and then you train it on your brand. So now it knows how to message your brand. And then it's as simple as giving it instructions, telling it what the goal is, and then you're going to have copy that's as good as, what the top copywriters write. So that might be one agent. And then that gets incorporated in, and you might have 20 different agents for each function. I mean, it's really interesting, the changes I think that are coming. And I also think they're unavoidable. So
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. The content pipeline is really rapidly evolving. You see a lot of people thinking about orchestrating not just the actual campaign, but the steps required to pull all the assets together to refine the messaging, etc.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Let's move on. But before I do, I just want to remind everyone that this is your session, and we've invited Jeff here to answer your questions. If you have one, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Let's give him a good question, something he can really sink his teeth into. All right. So let me go on to the next question I prepared. So with even with all the data we have now, providing ROI is still challenging. What do you think the next big thing is in how we measure success? And, by the same token, where are we falling short?
Traditionally, a lot of businesses might look at first click or last click. Where I'm at now, we take both, but that doesn't really provide the complete picture per se. Our sales cycles currently tend to be much longer. I mean, we could have a sales cycle up to 6 months. So the question is, what happened in between there? Maybe we generated the original lead through SEM, So they've come in and now they're in our ecosystem. They're getting our information. They're getting the content we provide. And we might send them 20 or 30 emails. They may have visited the website. Traditionally, you don't really see all of that. So that really brings up, I think, two challenges. The first is, how do you incorporate all that? And what we're doing right now is, for every type of marketing activity, whether it's a website visit, an email open, an email click, a form submit, an information request, every time one of those activities happens, we're dropping the contacts into a program within Eloqua. We're then using an internal form submit, though that's not ideal because it's kind of added, as activity to the contact record. But what that form submit does is it creates a record in CDO. So now we have every interaction that exists in a CDO. And then in addition to that, in the CDO, we are importing close won and close lost opportunities, which would include dollar amounts from our CRM into the CDO. And the key field in that CDO is email. So now we have a situation, and this brings up the other challenge, where we have a 500,000 plus records. And it's easy to look at any one individual opportunity because we can say, okay, this contact based on email address has this close one opportunity for this amount, and they've had these 18 interactions. But the challenge is we have a 500,000 records. It's not really feasible to look at each one individually. We can't even really draw conclusions from it. And that's where AI, again, is coming in. We are exploring and currently working on taking all of those records and providing it to an LLM, training the LLM, and using the LLM to find commonalities and to find out, of all of the marketing activities we're doing and the activities of the content, which ones are the most beneficial. And then from that, we're looking to make decisions about the types of contents, the frequency, and how often we do things, and what and where we send people. So we're still working on that, but I think that really helps you get not only down to ROI, and you can get the ROI at the individual engagement activity level, but you can also get it in the aggregate broader sense. So that's still a moving target.
Great. Yeah. I have two kind of follow-up questions to that, and
Yeah.
feel free to measure your response because I'm digging a little bit here. But the first question I have, I think many have, is, and I'm not looking for the specifics of your implementation, but what were the kind of conversations that took place internally as you thought about bringing AI and a custom solution, if you will, into the organization? What did those discussions look like?
So I don't know if that is a good question for me because upfront there weren't a lot of discussions. Most of the people where I'm at, they just see it as a way to supplement their work, and they're kind of on their own doing it. So I was more or less tasked, hey, we have all these activities. How can we take them and draw conclusions from them? So really, that was the only conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I know that many companies that we have watched, they have sort of three different perspectives. One, they're totally prohibited from using AI just as a policy. I think that's short-sighted, but that's where some companies are. They're cautious. And then there's others who are embracing it like you have internally. And then there's a third set that are looking for solutions on the outside and seeing where they can supplement what they have.
Yeah,
It sounds like you're working in-house at this point.
correct. And I would even, I mean, it's interesting. I think the companies that are trying to avoid it are going to be very challenged in the next 12 to 24 months. And I think in particular for marketers, I think it is very critical that they learn how to use AI, more so building agents that can do the work. because I think the eventuality, and again, this is my opinion, I think the eventuality is if there's a marketing team of 30 people, by the time AI is in full swing, I mean, I realistically see maybe 3 to 5 people who are building the systems with the AI agents doing the work. So I mean, if there's one piece of unsolicited advice I could give, it is learn how to leverage AI at a deep level. I think it's going to help um, make you more valuable in the future.
So one of the questions that, and again, I'm going to go a little bit off topic because I think you raise a
Mhm.
really good point with AI. How did you and your team embrace AI or get started? Did you take courses? Did you do self-study? I mean, how are you accelerating the pace of work that you're doing?
So for me, I would say it was through 4 steps. One of my friends who is a coder, we had a conversation, and I mean, this goes back to when ChatGPT might have been in its second iteration, maybe in first iteration. We just started talking about it, and I found it interesting. And then I was developing a form with conditional fields, and as everybody knows in Eloqua, you need to do custom code, custom JavaScript to show a field um, based on the value of another field. It's not something that's easily done out of the box. So in the past, traditionally, I would have gone to Google, done a search, looked up the JavaScript, and figured out how to do it. Well, this time I did it with ChatGTP, and I was able to do it pretty quickly. I mean, I'd say in about 4 hours. I got the answer. I was able to develop it, and it worked out very well. And I think it probably would have taken me a couple days in the past. So 2 days of work down to 4 hours. That really had me thinking. And then I started looking at it from a content perspective. But right now, we're way beyond just the content perspective. So in terms of how I embraced it, I tend to learn by doing. So I've watched a lot of videos. There's a lot of great YouTube videos, people talking about it, people doing demos. I think two big tools that people use in particular, 8N8, which is open source. So the actual number eight, the letter N, and then the number eight. And then the other one is make.com. Um, so I watch a lot of demos, people discussing 8N8 and make.com and creating agents. And from there, they kind of moved into doing my own work. And now I'm just kind of learning. I mean, that's how I do it. I just learn by doing. I watch people and then I try to mimic what they're doing. If I have questions, I look for the answer and move forward that way.
Great. Um, where would you suggest someone get started if they wanted to, start embracing AI? Would you go your same path, or would you also recommend courses?
I haven't taken any courses, but what I can say is the YouTube videos I've watched, there's probably 4 or 5 people that are creating really great videos, and they have businesses. So it's not like they're just creating, I mean, they have very successful 6, 7, and in some cases 8-figure businesses in AI. And they actually have memberships, and in those memberships, they give you what they would call the recipes, the agent recipes, and they have courses. So I would say go to YouTube, um, type in what you're looking for, watch the videos, watch several videos, and see which creator you probably find most interesting. And from that, if they offer courses and a membership, I would say move forward that way. In terms of pricing, I've seen some for say $28 a month, which really isn't much, and then up to I want to say 300 a month, which also isn't too much. So I think that's the best way to move forward on it.
Great. I know here at Forethought Marketing, we have a whole group of people who have been experimenting for well over a year using tools like Innate and others, getting familiar with the different things. Basically, asking the question is, we look at a task and we go, is there a way to supplement this or do it faster, do
Mhm.
it with higher quality? Is there a role for AI? And if there isn't a role, is there a role in the future? What's needed to get there? So, that's the approach we're taking, that it is inevitable, but we need to be there. We need to be building up our skills and so forth. Again, let me remind everyone that if you have questions, we would love to hear them. Where are you in your AI journey, or where are you in your Eloqua journey? Do you see an opportunity or a gap that you're looking to fill? We'd love to chat about it. Let me turn to a different topic, and I know you're going to bring in AI into it because I think everyone in this space is doing the same thing, but lead nurturing has been around for a very long time. Where do you see personalization evolving, and what does it take to to feel relevant today in the face of our customers?
Yeah, I mean that is another good question. As everybody knows, good nurturing pre-sells at a subconscious level, um, and it's always going to be relevant. I mean, there's not really a way around lead nurturing, and it's really more challenging depending on the nature of the business. Like if you're selling a $50 product as an internet marketer, lead nurturing is pretty straightforward. But if you have a buying cycle, kind of like where I'm at now, that's up to 6 months. It's more challenging. So, then there's the e-commerce style buys, but those are pretty quick. Like you go to Amazon, it's not really needed. But I think the bigger issue on lead nurturing, at least in my experience, is um, I think it's more difficult depending on how your prospects perceive the business, um, if that makes sense. So if a business is providing limited value, so sometimes businesses in lead nurturing, it's more about buy my stuff versus actually nurturing the lead. Um, I'll use the term value-based branding. It's something I want to say it's coined by Frank Kern. So, and what value-based branding is it is providing value up front independent of the transaction. So I think if you can find a way to provide value independent of the transaction, independent of asking for the money, and do that up front, I think you're going to have a lot of success in lead nurturing. Because I mean that really satisfies a lot of things. It helps people get to know you. It proves that you can deliver on what you're saying. It makes people trust you more. So that way, by the time you actually ask for the sale, it's a little bit easier. And that's why I say lead nurturing, is pre-selling at a subconscious level. So if you're providing that value up front, those results in advance, that's the pre-selling at the conscious level. And I think that's probably the critical mix to having tremendous success on the lead nurturing. But you're always going to have to do it.
Great. Um, when I was looking over the different projects that you'd worked on, one thing
Mhm.
that stood out to me was the number of times you were building reports. The question I have in my mind, though, is how do you turn data into, get people to pay attention to reports, and how do you turn data into decisions that move the business?
Um, that is a great question. So I'm going to start at the beginning on the reports. So the challenge I have or have had in the past is you have all this great data, you generate reports. The reports show something, but to your point, it doesn't move the business. And most of the time, the reason it doesn't move the business is because the key stakeholder, the report and the data isn't necessarily validating their position or their initiative. So that's why I say go back to the beginning. Like the reports are very easy to generate. You have all the data, you have all the tools. It's simple to generate the reports, but it's most critical before you generate any report is to understand what good likes or what good looks like. So if we're going to do this particular project, what is the goal of it? What does good look like? What does the outcome need to be? And then based on that, and based on getting buy-in from the stakeholders on that, then you create the reports. That way, when you're done, if it looks good, that's great. You move forward and maybe you double down, you put more money into it. But if it looks bad, you have the buy-in and you can move on to something else that, is maybe going to generate more revenue, more incremental revenue, because what you just did is not successful, based on the objective numbers in the report and based on the expectation that was set initially. So reporting is straightforward, but always align, before even creating the reporting, on what good is going to look like and what the goal is.
Great, great. All right, those are all my questions, and we're getting near the end of time. Let me turn it back to Al to see if we have any questions from the audience.
Yeah, and as a reminder, if you do have questions, please use that Q&A option on your screen. We did have a question that came through, which is, over the years, you've built custom solutions for Eloqua. What is the thought process for making that type of decision?
So can you define custom solutions? Or are you referring to Eloqua needs to do something and we make Eloqua do it, or define custom solution?
I'm going to jump in and say yes. It's you need it to do something, one little thing more.
Okay.
It may not be something out of the box that you can configure, but again, you're extending what is capable.
Yeah. So I think that the way I approach it, being an engineer, or at least trained engineer, I always look at, I like problem solving. So if I have a stakeholder that comes to me and says, for example, the example I shared, we need to figure out what's happening between first and last click so we can draw some conclusions and double down on what's working. So I'm given that challenge. I then think through, and my first go-to, I'm going to think, okay, what can we do in Eloqua? How can we accomplish this? Is it even possible to do in Eloqua? And admittedly, so I've been using Eloqua since 2017, so 8 years. Where I was 8 years ago versus where I'm at now, it's a night and day. Like 8 years ago, I was 2 out of 10. Now I'd say a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10. And most of what I'm doing in Eloqua, I'm making it do something it wasn't designed to do. It's sort of on the fringe, so to speak. And I always try and do that in Eloqua before I go, say, to another tool where I'm going to have to build and design. I think another example, and I have had conversations with people at Forethought, one of my questions was, can we compare the numeric value of two fields? Or do you have an app that allows me to compare two numbers and then based on that make a decision? The answer was no. So we created this survey, and the survey is used to categorize people or stratify people into 4 different groups. And I think the easiest way to say that, it's 4 different kind of personality types on the selling side. Well, the survey deals with numbers, and we needed to compare certain values to kind of stratify them within Eloqua. And I couldn't find anything that did that. So thinking through it, there is a way where you can compare field values being greater or less than, I want to say 0. So I was able to come up with a 3x3 matrix, which accurately, with a lot of custom fields. And then there's one other app I used. What was it? Contact. I forget. Anyways, there's another app, and in that app you can do math, so you can add up values. And I was able to use the matrix and do it very accurately, and all the testing, and it actually worked great. So I always try to solve in Eloqua. I always think through the problem. I try to break it down into its constituent steps. Very much, like Elon Musk first principles, right? So if we go to the beginning, what's the first step? What's the second step? Break it down into its pieces, its simplest parts, and I work through that way. And if I run into a roadblock, that I'm having trouble solving, I'll reach out to people I know, for example, Forethought. And then if that doesn't work, then I'll start looking at other alternative ways to solve.
And maybe these new AI agents will be something that you can do in the future. So I know we're all looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Well, we are at end of time. I want to thank you, Jeff, personally for joining us today. This has been very enlightening. And let me turn it back